So before I jump right into introducing our guests and talking about what we planned for today, I just wanted to take a minute and acknowledge what an incredibly hard week this has been for everyone, especially Americans, probably especially Texans, especially teachers, especially people with children, especially people who volunteer at schools. It's been a scary week, a week that's reminded us how scary the world can be. I think people are having lots of feelings of sadness and grief, but also feelings of anger and frustration. And I'm also hearing a lot of helplessness. And in talking with our other family mentors and peer mentors and clinicians at Equip, one thing that's come up is how sometimes when we feel helpless, there's an urge to capitulate on everything. And capitulate's a really fancy word for F it, screw it, just I'm not going to do anything. And it makes sense that you feel that way. And if you're in the middle of helping your child through an eating disorder, as strong as that urge is, find a way to get your cup filled, find a way to be supported during this scary time, because we need to keep on doing the hard work day after day of making sure our kids are getting the nutrients that they need and the support that they need. I hope that everyone has the ability to fill up their cup this week and this weekend and find some moments of joy in this really hard time. We're going to stick with our regularly scheduled topic. I think, especially if you've been watching the news or scrolling social media, it might be nice to talk or think about something else for a little bit too. And I'm really excited to invite two special guests. So the first is Lisa Stein. Lisa is a family mentor with Equip. She's been with us since the very beginning, was one of our beta family mentors when we did our beta trial in the summer of 2020, and is a parent who's helped their child through an eating disorder. And also, I am very excited in a moment, there they are. I'm going to be, let's see if I can get Zoom to work properly here, bringing on Lisa's daughter, Amelia. So Amelia, here you come. And I would love, Lisa, if you want to kick us off and kind of start telling you and your daughter's story, and then maybe Amelia can kind of take over and tell her version of the story as well, give a chance for people to know who you are and what you've been through. And welcome, Amelia.
Hi, thank you.
So Amelia first became anorexic at 11 and, lost quite a bit of weight in that year before the 6th grade. And then around Christmas time told me that she was, not eating and had lost a lot of weight, and she was cold and she was sick. And so she was scared and she came to us. And then we got her into like an outpatient program. And then that summer she did an IOP program all summer. And then she was kind of stabilized, but then it was time to start the 7th grade and she was going to start at a different school. So we kind of took her out and went back to outpatient at that point. And there she kind of sat for like 5 years. Like we had a lot of therapy, a lot of dietitians, a lot of things, but it just wasn't, it wasn't recovery. It was just sort of an in-between space. And then she started to apply to college and take the SAT and get ready for college. And I realized that she wasn't an independent eater and she was underweight and she was not able to feed herself outside of the meal plan. And so the recommendation was to do like another IOP senior year or residential. And we decided that those were options, or we could do FBT at home and we could just feed through until we didn't even have a goal weight. We didn't have an official program. So she wanted to try that so she could do senior year. And so that's what we did. And within 10 pounds, she had her period again, which was almost a first. It was like here and there, but it was almost a first. And then I just said, we're never going back. We're only going forward. We're just going to keep, putting on the weight and eating, and I'll keep plating and preparing the food until we think that you're ready. And so that's what we did. And by December of that year, I felt like she was like at the right place to, give her back some freedoms. And, she was in a totally different headspace. She was doing great. And that was January 2020. So by March, it was COVID and everything stopped. She just came home. She finished high school at home. I felt that she was ready to go to college in September of that year, but she was going to a California college and they didn't open. So she stayed home even longer. So I really feel like I was blessed with extra time with her, extra time to get better than I even expected her to have. And then she moved out that January and she's lived out ever since. So that was a year and a half ago. And now she is applying to transfer to fashion school in New York.
Wow. Wow. What a story. And I mean, for all of you on the call, I'm sure there was a moment, Lisa and Amelia, that you didn't imagine that you'd be on the other side of this and on a webinar helping other families. I mean, there has to be some people being like, I can't even imagine we could get to this point. So this must be a little surreal to have this in your rearview mirror. Amelia, I'd love to hear kind of from your standpoint, what you remember kind of at the end of junior year and going into senior year. And that thought of like, am I going to be able to leave for college or not? Am I get, how much do I need to keep having my parents' support?
Yeah, for a while there, I actually well, first I want to say I don't remember everything from that time period. I have a lot of memories that have been blocked out, that haven't totally come back. I've heard that that's normal, so that's okay. But at the end of junior year, I cared less about going to college than I did maintaining my eating disorder. And that did change. I don't remember the moment that exactly changed. I had a lot of rock bottom moments, a lot of times in the nutritionist office when I hadn't gained any weight and I would just break down crying because I felt like I was going backwards for so long. And then there was just a day when I something did kind of a switch did flip after about 7 years of restricting myself to only the most the smallest list of foods. And then all of a sudden I was just super motivated to have my own life. But I can't really explain why that happened. I wish I could.
It's okay. It's okay. And Amelia, it is normal, the not remembering both. I mean, I barely remember my own. And then also I've had so many patients that I've worked with that have come back. They're like, Erin, I know that I like you, but have really no recollection of actually talking to you. Like, that's fine. I was your therapist for a year. That's okay. So one of the questions that comes up, and I think there's some people on this call who it is end of May, it's Memorial Day this weekend. There's a bunch of people who have high school seniors that are about to graduate and they're thinking, should I send my kid to school in the fall or not? What are some things, Lisa, we'll start with you, that you noticed that made you feel comfortable with Amelia leaving home? And in hindsight, any ooh, I thought I was comfortable with her leaving home, but I'm glad that she didn't. Any things to look out for?
Yeah, I mean, I was glad to have the extra time. And I think I have a lot more time than a lot of my families here at Equip, based on where they are too. So I think I needed her to eat outside of her meal plan. It wasn't enough to just eat the very basics. So I needed to see that there was some snacking after dinner that was more free than it used to be. Definitely needing, not fighting me about the basics, but even going beyond that. So that was, that's what really gave me the confidence. She could go out and get, do a drive-through and get a meal. So it was those kind of things that gave me the confidence that she was ready. I wish that it wasn't such a COVID lockdown when we were working on this, because we could have gone out to eat a lot more and we were really limited in that. But we had a year before she had gone to a camp at UCLA that was 2 weeks. And that was a big risk because she was underweight at that time, but I allowed her to do it. But the rule was that she had to, she couldn't lose any weight or she would come home and she would lose freedoms. And so we even practiced, we went to hometown buffet and we ate hometown buffet because I'm this is kind of what it's like at school, so we created situations for success.
I'm writing these down as you say, and lots of good advice. So one is practice. There's something about, especially being young and not being at home, where you have to be able to kind of eat on the go. Something might happen and you weren't able to get lunch. The cafeteria closed when you got, you were late getting out of class. So can you quickly go grab that drive-through, or can you quickly go grab something? So loved the different practicing you did. And I also liked the signs you looked for. So you said eating outside of the meal plan, and also like the lack of fighting and negotiating. Amelia, was there anything you noticed from your end that you're like, this is how I know that I'm ready to go? And maybe I thought I was ready to go before, but now looking back, this is how I know that I wasn't.
I actually never knew if I was ready to go on my own. I didn't know if once I got freedom, like total freedom, how it would go. I had all the mental wherewithal that I had had before, but I wasn't sure that I was going to go to college and everything was going to be okay. And it wasn't, because things go wrong. And it's hard to be a semi-adult. It's hard to be on your own. It's hard to have to source every meal for yourself. And it's an everyday battle. And I think that's what I want to emphasize for everyone, because you have to have a lot of just will to say, I need energy to learn. That's the point of me being at college. Why am I going to be at college if I'm going to starve my brain? And I don't know, I think there's some growing up that comes before you leave that really has to take place. I just realized that my mental state was more responsible and more like, okay, I want to keep myself alive for once.
That's amazing. So you had to be at a certain point of your motivation that not only did you want to go away, but you also wanted things other than your eating disorder.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. For those just joining us, you can put questions in the Q&A box at the bottom. And I have a few questions that came through. And I mean, one question, Lisa, we'll start with you. How can I ensure that my daughter will make good choices when she is on her own?
Is that for me?
Yeah, that question
sure can.
Yeah.
You sure can. No, I agree with you that you can't ensure that. But I think, like, when I knew that she was doing the best was one day I visited her apartment, because one semester she had to live in an apartment before the dorms opened. And she had a whiteboard that said, eat your meals and snacks, take your medication, meet with your therapist, get up and shower. I don't know, there was like a whole list. And I just saw that and I thought, wow, that's a person who's got it together, more so than I bet her friends who hadn't been through an eating disorder. I don't think that they're nearly as intentional. So I'm like, wow, she's being really intentional. And I felt really good about that. But she didn't do that before she left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But before she left, you were saying that she was starting to eat outside of her meal plan and kind of a lack of fighting at meals. And I think that's a good reminder for people that, how can I ensure my child will make good decisions when she's on her own? Well, is she making good decisions when she's not on her own? Right. Well, she's not going to magically make better decisions once she goes to a new environment. And I get it, because I think that kind of magical thinking is something that all of us participate in, like, oh, I'll be better when I'm on vacation, or all about anything, right? Or I'll feel happier when I move to this new apartment, or when I get this new roommate. But really, we kind of take where we're at with us. And so I think that's kind of a question to go back to the person who asked the question, which is, well, how is she doing right now? Is she making good choices right now? That's probably a good indicator that she'll be able to keep making good choices. Amelia, would you add anything about, oh, sorry, Lisa, for interrupting.
Oh, no, that's okay. I mean, I was just thinking, like, of the families that I'm working with, like, Amelia never said to me, I want to be out of your house so that I can restrict and lose weight and have no schedule and no like semblance of structure. And so when I hear that, that really worries me the most, because it should be, I want to go and learn and make friends and, take care of myself and love myself. And so if you're hearing that, those other things, that says not ready to me.
I love that. That is great advice. Amelia, is there anything that you would add about, you're right, we can't ensure anything. That's one of the hardest things about being a parent, is a little piece of our heart is just walking around outside of our bodies. Anything that you would add?
Yeah, well, I don't, every choice I make isn't a good one, but I think
Earmuffs, mom, earmuffs.
no, but like my mom can say I'm a perfectly functional and a pretty cool person, and I've got some things going. So every choice doesn't have to be perfect. There's gonna be a lot of missteps. I mean, I'm only 19. I'm turning 20 next week. So I'm a super, thank you. So and like going into college, you're only like 18. So it's a super young person. And I think if your kid is saying anything like what my mom said, having lived through this, you can't send your kid away. That makes no sense to me, because it's going to go downhill, and it's going to go downhill fast. That's all I have to say on that. Yeah,
that is such great advice. Someone commented that they're having trouble hearing. So if other people are having audio issues, feel free to put it in the chat and we figure out if it's us or if it's you. Yeah, along those lines, Amelia, like what you said too, is like where someone's at in recovery. So let's say someone has 20 pounds to gain. If you send them to college when they've only gained 5 of the 20 pounds, probably not a great idea, right? But if they've already weight restored, if they have a few months of weight restoration under their belt, if they have gone 3 months without binging or purging or self-harming, then if they go to college and they make a few bad choices, they have, like, we call it like having a cushion. A big part of one of my favorite DBT skills is about basically getting a lot of pillows on the ground, because life is going to knock you down sometimes. We're going to have weeks like this that really just take the wind out of all of us. But you want to have a soft place to land. And if you're already 15 pounds behind on weight restoration, if you're already self-harming when you leave for college, it'll be harder. Amelia, this question is specifically for you. What is your best advice for eating out at restaurants as a recovering patient with anorexia nervosa?
It felt impossible. It really did for a really long time, like probably the first 10 to 15 times I went out to eat with my parents. The first time I went out to eat, I can't remember if this was the very first time or just one of the times, when I remember we went to this Chinese restaurant in Beverly Hills, and I just looked at the menu and I had a full-blown panic attack. Like it was the worst panic attack I had had since I can remember. So it's super ridiculously daunting, and parents do understand that, but I don't think that it's really possible to fully understand how scary it is unless you've lived through it. So I just think that the best thing for parents to say is that you understand that this is scary, and just keep saying that you're proud of them. I'm super close with my parents. I love my parents more than anything. And just whenever I heard that they were proud of me, that kind of kept me going. Like it always has. So I don't know. That's just me personally. But also I think it's important to remind them that they don't have to finish everything. If you're eating a challenge meal, I sat down to a challenge meal thinking I have this huge plate of food in front of me and I have to finish all of it. But that's not really the case, because that's not how people eat in the real world. You're not forced to finish this entire plate of food in front of you. So I just find it important that even if you take a few bites of this new thing, I think that's a huge success, because that was ridiculously hard for me.
Yeah, that you could get some of your nutrients from something that's new and scary, and you can get the rest of your nutrients from things that are more comfortable and easy. That doesn't have to all be from the scary thing. Yeah,
exactly. Because the next time it's going to be less scary.
I think another big thing that you said that I love is that it felt impossible going to restaurants. And I think sometimes as parents, we're like, but you loved this place, remember? Isn't this food good? You used to like it. And it can be hard for us that they aren't enjoying it when you take them, and having to realize that the success is going and trying. The success isn't going, trying, and having a great time. Like that's not the goal of the first many restaurant visits. Oh, Lisa, did someone raise their hand? That doesn't happen often. I got so excited, but maybe it was an accident.
Sorry, that was actually me.
Oh, I got so excited. I'm like, our first hand raise. No, it's okay. And we like to say to the people on the group that I get it. You know, it's normal to not want to talk in a group publicly like this, and it is being recorded so that others can enjoy it. But if you do want to come on and ask us questions live, you can.
So, Amelia, how do you feel about going to restaurants now?
I love going to restaurants now. And I also want people to know, like, when parents are sad that their kids don't like their favorite restaurants anymore, your kid's really sad too. Like I was so sad going to like these restaurants that I would go to with my family when I was a happy, like carefree child. And I don't even want to look at the menu. I don't want to sit there. Like that's a really sad feeling, even when I was super, super down bad. I just wanted to put that out there, that just like sometimes your kid's feeling exactly how you're feeling. And if you can kind of voice that, it's very helpful.
Sounds like your
And now I'm
parents did
blanking. Yes,
no,
sorry.
it sounds like your parents did a great job of letting you know, like, it's okay that you're sad. It's okay that you're anxious. Like
Yeah.
they didn't need you to be happy. They needed you to keep working on restoring your health. Yeah.
Because happiness all the time is never going to happen for anyone, especially someone recovering from an eating disorder.
Mm-hmm. Lisa, Deb asks, once your child has reached their weight restoration goal, how do you start to back off from weigh-ins and meal plating? And kind of really a relevant talk as you think about them leaving your house, even harder to do weigh-ins and meal plating.
Yeah, I mean, we did not immediately discontinue that at all. We rolled out everything slow. So I was still, well, that was before COVID in March. I was still driving to school with her lunch in the car. So I did, completely supervised lunch to when we were weight restoring. And so then, in March, like then she was kind of home, so she could like grab things more on her own. So I would like supervise that. I pretty much continued to make dinner and breakfast like indefinitely and plate that and hand it to her. And I just didn't have like, she just didn't push back on that, but then she would like snack, she would choose snacks. We were still weighing every other week just to see. I have no idea what she weighs now. I haven't weighed her in months. So, but it's been 2.5 years since that first weight restoration. So I don't know, but like when I would go see her, like, because the requirement was that she stay in California for college to begin college. And I would go see her every other week. And if she looked thin to me, that was my guide, like if she just didn't look right. If she got sick, I would bring her home and feed her at home. So, I mean, there's still times that she comes over and she's like, I make every meal. Will you just put it on the plate for me and hand it to me?
I love that. I love that you're saying it because it's also kind of a gift. And when you're struggling with an eating disorder, just your brain is just torturing you. And sometimes obviously it can sometimes feel like torture when your parents tell you exactly what to eat, but also it can feel like a tremendous gift to relieve your brain of having to worry about it. So I like, Lisa, kind of your message here that you don't need to be too quick to take it away just because you hit weight restoration. You can take it slow. You can take it one meal at a time. I know some people who just gave snacks back first and then did that for a month. And then just lunch was something the child was responsible for, and give that a month or so. Just be and then maybe for breakfast, every other breakfast, or maybe in your household, I don't know. I mean, frankly, my mother still makes me breakfast when I sleep over at her place, right? Like I hope to never be too old for my mom to make me something. So yes, be kind to yourself, Deb, and know that it is not that your child's doing poorly that you continue to be in charge. It could be also a gift that you're giving them and something that you slowly back away from.
Right. Like it definitely didn't make her unable to live on her own, make her own food, do her own grocery shopping, because she's in college with a car. She was able to make that transition seamlessly. So because some people feel like they're just not going to be able to do it. I didn't find that. I felt that the time and the slow rolling back, she was completely capable.
I like that. It's one of the things that I've been most excited about with Equip, and I won't talk about Equip too much because I know there's a lot of people on this call who maybe live in different countries or don't have access to Equip. But Brooke, our VP of Strategic Growth, wrote a wonderful kind of public article talking about how she got sick as she got sick her senior year. And so she had her treatment team where she was at when she lived for high school, and then moved to college in a different state and got a new treatment team, and then transferred colleges and so had a new treatment team. And then the summer she was back where she was home, and how nice it can be to have a continuous support system as you're working your way through it. Okay, we've got a question for you specifically, Amelia. Amelia, I've just found out my daughter has an eating disorder. She's now in a residential program and hopes to go back to college. What actions or words did you find helpful that your parents said to you? And also, what was not helpful?
When I first well, I was never in residential, but I went to an outpatient program. And when I first went in there, I also, again, I don't remember very well. There wasn't, I'm trying to think of a single thing that helped me. When I was first going into the outpatient center, I really didn't want to hear anything from anyone. I want
to be good advice right there, though.
I want to have a good answer. It's just as kind and understanding as you can be. I'm trying to think of something that was not helpful also.
Yeah.
I also can't think of something for that.
But maybe for the person asking, just to be kind to yourself, because there might be no right thing to say. There might be nothing that your child wants to hear, nothing that doesn't get met with an eye roll right now. And that doesn't mean you're a bad parent or you're saying the wrong thing. There just aren't magic words when someone's struggling to the extent that your child may be struggling. Maybe your mom remembers something. Lisa, do you remember anything?
What helped?
Or helped or hurt? When they're saying that their child has, they just found out that their child has an eating disorder, and it sounds like their child's getting treatment for the first time, and they want to help their child, but aren't sure exactly what to do or say that might be helpful or not helpful.
And I'm trying to think, because that is like kind of an early on space. I tried to never talk about bodies or weight or, about anybody, about myself, about like anyone else in the world. I just like took that out of our conversation. Trying to think what it also wasn't helpful to like talk about the eating disorder as a thing. I think that would make her angry. We can talk about it now, but we couldn't talk about it then. But at the same time, I still was able to like know that some of her behaviors were the eating disorder and not her, but I more thought that than said that. Like I didn't say, well, that's your eating disorder or something like that. But I think like, I think with my temperament being really, I'm really kind of chill and even all the time. And I think that was probably helpful. I wasn't a yeller, or, I didn't sit there and cry, so I think that probably like my even keel was good. So even if you have to fake that, I would fake that.
Yeah. As someone who's not even keeled, I appreciate that. And I do think that that's what's needed. When our kids are struggling with anything, sometimes if we don't take care of our own response in private, right? So I'm sure, Lisa, you cried to a sibling or your spouse or just about how worried you were about Amelia. But we have to sometimes do that in private because we don't want to show our kids that we can't handle what they're going through, that we're not a safe place for them to bring their struggles and emotion. And I know that oftentimes, and I've heard from many, both teens and parents, that when your child first gets diagnosed, you kind of get stuck in the why, and when you say, well, wait, how long haven't you liked your body? And wait, was it something I said to you? Was it something dad said to you? And you get really kind of caught in that. You get caught in your own head and you get caught in that line of questioning. And I've heard from a lot of people that it's not helpful. It's not helpful for you to get caught in the why, but also your child doesn't like getting bombarded with why, because usually they don't know exactly why it started either. Here's another great question. So someone reported that their child's been weight restored for 2.5 years. They've been told it takes a good 18 to 24 months for the brain to heal. Was this the case for you all? Lisa, when did you start seeing a change in Amelia?
I saw a change right after she got her period. Then I saw more change when she like hit the weight that I thought was the right range. And then I tell people this all the time. Every 3 months, I see change in Amelia. Still to this day, I see like growth. I see healing. I see like we just went on vacation and we had the best vacation that we've ever had because she was so free to enjoy the activities, free to enjoy the food. That was hugely different than a year before. So I would say, like, don't expect to see the change like every single day, like give it every few months, start to look for the change. So that's why I'm such a believer in the marathon, not a race, perspective of healing. Like when she left my house in January 2021, she was not where she is now.
That's amazing. And I love that, a marathon, not a race. I also like what you said about how, maybe like the light started coming back on when she got her period, but there was still more weight restoration that happened after that. And for Anonymous, who wrote this in, said she'd been weight restored for 2.5 years. And I think it's always worth entertaining that as we age, as we grow, as we go through life, our goal weight changes, it goes up. And so perhaps what was a goal weight 2.5 years ago is not the weight that your child needs to be now. And if that's really disheartening, I'm sorry to say that you've already been through the weight restoration. You're like, I don't want to do this again, but it's something to consider if you're still not seeing the healing. For both Lisa and Amelia, what was the role of the other at-home partner, for instance, like the other parent? I'm especially interested in the role, help, and important actions of fathers. Amelia, do you want to start by saying?
Ooh, that's loaded.
Okay. Well, let's hear it.
Yeah. My dad was not, he's awesome now. Let me just say that. Sometimes dads are better parents to older kids. That's what I've come to realize. At first, he did not deal with it well. He was not very helpful, and my mom pretty much did do everything. She was there every meal, sitting me down. She would make the food. My dad works every day, so he would be at the office, especially when I was younger, like when it first started. He would be at the office. My mom would come to school every day and bring me lunch. So it kind of felt like it was me and my mom for a long time. And this just my own personal issues. I felt as though I had some trust issues with him. So like one time I caught him like sprinkling some extra cheese in my food. And that just made me angry because I'm like, okay, well, I trusted you to make me food this one time and you're disobeying my trust. So it was just those early eating disorder thoughts. I don't trust him. So I backed away a little bit and I told myself, you don't need his support. But as I grew older, I told myself, I want support in any way that I can get from him, because I realized I love my dad. I've always loved my dad, and it's not his fault. Like I can blame certain aspects of my eating disorder upon ways that he acted when I was a child, but I can't put everything on anyone. So once I got rid of that blame and whatever anger I had towards him for putting that extra cheese on my food, whatever he did, our relationship really changed. And now we go to dinner together every week. I see him a bunch. We go shopping together. We talk every day on the phone. And it's just a completely different relationship than I ever imagined I would have. So if your partner isn't necessarily doing the most work right now or being the most helpful, I saw how hard my mom had to work, and I can't imagine working that hard. So I just want to say, stick with it. I mean, now, like, I appreciate my mom more than anything. Like I would do anything for my mom. Obviously, just I know how much she did for me. So your kid is gonna come to that place where I basically worship my mom. She kept me alive. But your kid will get there. And
I'm glad that you shared that, Amelia. And I think there might be a lot of parents on this call whose kids don't really like them very much right now, whose parents are working really hard to help them get through the eating disorder, and the kids, or the kids' eating disorder is really fighting them. So I think it's really refreshing to see people who are on the other side. Lisa, I'd love to hear your advice of working with your husband on helping Amelia, but also you've now helped so many families, both at Equip and in your previous work at different organizations. Would love advice on what you've seen and different kind of combinations of ways things have worked. Iterations, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, so Amelia skipped the part where we got divorced in the middle of her care.
Oh, I
So
didn't know that either.
yeah,
Okay.
so I'm not married to her dad. We got divorced when she was, I think she was like 13. So it was kind of in the middle of it. And then we both lived in Los Angeles, and then eventually I moved out of town with Amelia. And so she was a little further from her dad. So she was mostly at that point just seeing her dad weekends.
Gotcha.
It wasn't like an even split. So, I mean, the very nature of our home was I was like a stay-at-home parent for the most part. And he worked. And so that didn't change that much when we added anorexia to it. It was just one more thing like for me to handle because at home, while he continued to work. So it didn't really surprise me that that's kind of how it played out. And he is a very restrictive eater. And so feeding her like according to like Equip's thoughts of all food fits, and that he doesn't believe that. I don't think even to this day he doesn't believe that. So when I was doing that like final refeeding and she was gaining weight, I was actually sending her to his house with a cooler full of food that I had prepared because it just wasn't going to be prepared the way I needed it to be.
Mhm. Sounds like you took matters into your own hands. And I'm loving this story also because sometimes when we talk to people about including family in treatment, they're like, well, you don't understand because my partner this, or I can't do that because this. And it's such a, like, you worked with what you had and you made it work. Amelia, your hand is up again. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, it's funny because I put my hand up because I feel like otherwise I'm going to forget what I want to
Yeah,
say.
do it.
I put my hand up at the word cooler because I actually forgot about the cooler. My mom would make this chicken in the crock pot like multiple times per week, and she would send me with a bunch of chicken and like some sweet potatoes and just things that my dad had. It was the epitome of a divorced dad apartment. He had like some old cranberry juice and some yogurt that had no sugar in it, maybe some mustard, some condiments. It was barren. So I really came with everything, especially after my sister left for college, because then it was just me going to my dad's. And that took a lot of strength to actually go there. And he was out a lot of the time because at that point he didn't live with his fiance. So he would just hang out with her at like her place a lot. So it was me on my own for a lot of time. And that was really difficult. I don't know where I'm going with this.
No, but I think what you're
direction.
No, but what I love about it, Amelia and Lisa, is you're both showing that it's not like, oh, of course recovery worked for you because you had a picture perfect situation and you had a husband who came home and did dinner and no. And I love this because I think this is realistic. Life is messy. Families are messy and the world is messy. And recovery is still possible within it. And you just figure out what's going to work for your situation and your family. I love the tenacity that you've all shown.
And I love with my families when the partners are really cute to each other during session. And I will comment on it because it's so unlike my experience. And so it's like, even if dad isn't like in the trenches, like helping prepare the meal, just sometimes the kindness that they show to the other partner to me, like is worth mentioning. It's really nice to just see that support. So, but I definitely understand when, I think a lot of times it's kind of segmented work in a home. And like when I was getting divorced, like my therapist pointed out, but this is like the way you set up your household. Like you set it up where he was going to work and you were going to be at home and you were going to volunteer and you were going to be like mom of the year. And so that's what I got, so then when this was added to it, I just got more work. It didn't,
Yeah.
But other households are more even. Mine just wasn't very even.
Yeah. Yeah. And we also have seen, I think we've seen households that start very even and become uneven once the eating disorder shows up. And we've seen the opposite too, households that were an uneven distribution that became even when the eating disorder shows up. It hits all families. And I think that's what people who haven't been exposed to eating disorders don't realize. I'm like, no, there's not like a type, right? This affects everybody. boys and girls and families of all, different shapes and sizes and places around the country. I had, on this note of the other parent, I got this advice when my first son was born from my dad, and it's advice that is now carried through. We've helped our children through some things. And so my husband's name is Seth, and my dad said to me, he's like, Erin, Seth is not always going to do it right, and he's not going to do it your way, and just bite your tongue and don't correct him. Because, he said in his experience, my parents also are now divorced. He's like, I felt like I kept getting corrected for doing it wrong, so I just stopped trying. And so when my kids were infants, yeah, I didn't think he burped them correctly. And it drove me nuts how they'd be crying. And I'm like, no, you got to get up and move around. But I'm like, no, don't say anything. But then the same thing has been true as we've, helped to feed our sons and help them with some different things. The recognition that as long as they have the basics down, it's okay if they do it different than you. And sometimes it can be nice that they do it different from you. So you mentioned your sister, Amelia, and that brought up a question from Linda. She asked, my daughter's hesitant to tell her brother about her disorder. How did you tell your sister, and was it hard for you?
There was no telling my sister for me. It was just kind of obvious to all of my family at once. I don't remember if I ever had a conversation with her just saying I have developed anorexia. I think I was too young to bring those words together correctly. I completely understand the fear aspect. I mean, I'll just bring it back to my parents, how afraid I was to reach out for help for my parents, because I'm super close to my sister as well. It's a very similar bond that I have with my parents. It's a kind of fear of letting go of, there's so much fear of letting go of the eating disorder. And each person you tell that you're going to start recovering is another person who you might let down. That's how I kind of looked at it. And that's really hard, especially for a young person who's going through so much emotional turmoil. That's really hard to grapple with. So I completely understand that. I think the best way to go about it would probably be to sit your son down first and say, this is what's going on with your sister. She will most likely come to you if she needs support, anything like that, just to keep everyone in the loop. That's what I found the most helpful. I wanted to make sure that my sister knew what was going on with me, but I didn't necessarily want to be the one to tell her. So I think sometimes taking the responsibility off your children of that can be helpful.
Thank you for that, Amelia. Lisa, what do you remember about that and with your other daughter?
Yeah, I mean, Amelia was 11, so her sister was 14. So yeah, I mean, I think we all came to terms with it right away together, but we did find her a therapist and a dietitian quickly, and that poor sister came to appointment after appointment after appointment. So there was no hiding it, because I was I'd pick them up from school and we'd have to go to appointments. So she was pretty in the know.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's also a good reminder is that your son is also part of your family. And while we think we might be keeping a secret from one member of the family, they know when there's tension in the house, they know when there's conflict, they know something's going on. And hopefully that gives you some comfort that it might be easier to tell them than you think. I'm being reminded of all the questions that were submitted in advance, and I want to get to them as well. Let's see here. How do you know if your child is ready to attend college in the fall? And do you ease into it and take a part-time schedule? I know we kind of talked about some of this at the beginning, but let's think about maybe we can list for people a few of the ways that they might know that definitely a sign your child's not ready, or definitely a sign that go ahead and give it a try, but look out for these things. Comes to mind for you, Lisa?
Well, I think what comes to mind now, having seen a couple years, is to help them choose a schedule that isn't too overwhelming. Maybe only 3 or 4 classes. So that's not necessarily part-time, but and space it out so that it's not 4 classes in one day, space it out in a way that allows for like normal meal times. So be thoughtful, because as a freshman, they can take anything. So there's flexibility. So I guess make their schedule work around their eating. Like I always put her eating first. She could eat and then she could go out. She could eat and then she could go to work. So I would do that with school as well. So, if you have one of these kids that just doesn't want you in their business, that's the red flag to me, because my kid will still say like, all right, mom, I'm going to take this class and that class. She still like is open to my input.
That's really great advice. Like I hadn't even thought about that, about the ways in which the classes you choose affect your schedule and affect your ability to eat during the day. Amelia, you probably, have met other people who've struggled with an eating disorder. Any thoughts on, if you're still doing this, you're not ready to go, or thoughts about putting together your schedule and figuring out how to make the transition away from home successful?
Yeah, I have a few friends that I feel should not have gone to college and have not necessarily done well. And I think that that's because their parents didn't take a real stand against the eating disorder the way that my mom did. Because your kids are not going to want to be, is not going to be the one who takes the stand. It's not going to happen. Because you really need to fight with it for a while before you do anything to stop it. What I would really look out for is what I found really important was listening to hunger cues and what I want to eat. That was one of the biggest changes, because if your kid is on the schedule of 3 meals, 3 snacks a day, but they're not feeling the hunger cues, when they get to school, they're most likely not going to stick to that schedule if you're not feeling hungry then. So I think it's really important to look out for, is your kid actually feeling this hunger cue again? Because it goes away for so long and then it comes back pretty suddenly, honestly, kind of out of nowhere, but it's so important to look out for. And also, if your kid is like, let's go to this restaurant or let's get this snack. Like I would ask my mom, can we go get frozen yogurt? Because like frozen yogurt is one of my favorite things. So I think if you're seeing signs that almost like before the eating disorder, if you're seeing your kid kind of the way you saw them before, I think that's the best sign you can look for.
I really like that. And I like you mentioning that you have noticed people who might not have been ready to go to school. And I have seen a lot of people go to school too soon, and then they have to leave school for treatment. And they're a lot less likely to end up going back and finishing school than the people I've seen who decided to go a year late. So going late usually results in recovery and then success at school. Going too soon usually results in a relapse at school, and it's harder to get back into school. So something to keep in mind. My 24-year-old daughter will be starting graduate school this fall, 1,500 miles from home and living independently for the first time. She's currently in phase 1 at Equip. What are the differences in leaving home with anorexia for college versus graduate school? I don't know. I went to college and graduate school and I felt like they were kind of the same, right? Like you're not significantly older than when you go to college. Any thoughts that come up for Lisa or Amelia, for either of you to answer that question?
I don't know, because I haven't had a kid go to graduate school. But
yeah.
So I think it's like the same process of readiness. And when you're in graduate school, you're more likely to live like on your own and not have like all that freshman support. And so I think you probably have less support and more independence in graduate school. So I guess you'd have to make sure they could really, really do it. And do they really want recovery, or do they want to just be there with their eating disorder? That would concern me.
I think that's a great point. And what is the mentality that they have right now in phase one? I think one of the great things about both college and grad schools, it's pretty easy to defer and even just start a semester late. So I think that if you're having any doubts about whether or not your child is ready, the negative consequences of keeping them home for an extra 4 or 5 months aren't as big as the negative consequences of sending them too soon, in my opinion. Okay, Amelia, if your child is absolutely refusing to eat a particular meal, what is the best way to approach this? And we'll start with you, thinking if you can remember any ways that your mom approached it.
I'm trying to think if there's like if it's like, it sounds more like a specific meal than a specific food. So I'll just go with a specific meal. Like if I'm thinking, for example, when I absolutely refuse to eat my snack after dinner, I think that it's okay to start with something smaller. If you want your kid to have a late night snack that's like 200 calories, that's your goal, maybe start them with something that feels more comfortable, maybe something like around 100. I remember I had a lot of 100-calorie packs as dessert snacks because it was just something sweet, and that felt like progress in itself. So if there's any sort of flexibility there, or if there's not flexibility, you can force it upon them. Never be afraid to force things upon your child. My mom forced a lot of things on me.
And you turned out fantastic. I think that's
Thank you. I think so too.
I love it too, though, because I think people think I'm going to ruin my relationship with my child. And you're right. Your child might be really mad at you if you tell them, nope, you're deferring fall semester, or you have to eat this snack, and everything in between. Lots of things make eating disorders upset. And you get through it, and the relationship with your parent is still there on the other side. Lisa, as you think about Amelia moving from the West Coast, where we both are, to New York, is that right? You're moving to and Amelia, when do you move there?
Hopefully August. I'm still waiting to hear back from the schools, but I'm hoping August.
Hoping August. It's really exciting. I'd love to hear what makes you nervous, and then also what makes you excited about her moving to New York.
Yeah, so what makes me sad is that both my kids will live on the East Coast. Okay, I said it. And I can't just like easily be either place. It's expensive. Where do I stay? You know, so that's sad. What makes me worried is that I used to be able to go and like drive to where she was in school within like an hour and a half, and I could save her and I could bring her back home. And because things happened this last year and she needed me to be there. So, you know, that still worries me. Like I'm not worried about like the eating part of it. I think she's really proven herself that she likes to eat again, and she enjoys it. And she went to New York a few weeks ago with her dad, and just to like make sure she really wanted to be there. And she ate great, and she has a bunch of friends there, and it's an art program. Like I think we put her in the business program where she's at in entrepreneurship because she's so creative, but it was still a business program. So it wasn't necessarily like the match for her. But it seemed like, okay, that's a good choice. But I really believe that doing fashion design is the right thing for her. And so I think that this is an amazing opportunity. Like she sews all the time. She like buys and sells clothes. She like makes old clothes into new things. Like I always kind of knew this was her. And I think one time recently she said, I don't know if she said it or I just thought it, like if her life hadn't been hijacked, this is where she would have been. So how amazing to—
You just thought that.
Oh.
I never considered my life being hijacked.
That's how I see it.
I know you do, because you've used that word.
Yeah. Like
that's pretty profound though, that like, and I think what's so beautiful about it is that you got where you were going to go. And I think sometimes, especially for parents on this call that are like, oh my gosh, could I, like, they're a senior, they're about to graduate high school. Could I really, am I going to crush them by saying, I'm not going to let you go to school in the fall. You're just not ready. And yeah, it'll be hard for them to hear that, but you get your kid healthy and then they ultimately go where they were always meant to be. And even if you're ending up in New York, 12 months later than you would have liked, you're getting there. Amelia, what are you excited about New York? And then also anything that you're nervous about?
I'm also nervous about, I've never been more than 60 miles from my mom, which feels far to me now. Like when I'm in LA and she's in Orange County, that's going to be something completely different that I haven't even mentally grasped yet. So I am nervous, because crappy things happen to me a lot. And what if something really crappy happens and I really need my mom? But then I know that my dad someone would find a way to get me home. So I always there's always that thing in the back of my mind. Something really bad happens, it's gonna be okay. I also have a lot of, I don't know, at this point I can just do a lot of self-soothing, which reassures me. I'm super excited because all of my high school friends left LA and went to New York. So I'll be with them again. And this is really what I've been wanting to do for a long, long time. But I felt like my parents would be more proud of me if I went the normal business route. But as time went on, I just realized that that's not really me. I'm not a calculus person, and that's okay. My brain doesn't have to think like that because I really love to create things. So I'm really just looking forward to being in school that doesn't make me feel inadequate, and something that I'm excited for. I haven't been excited for something like this in a really long time. So just like the difference in feeling of, wow, there's something new to look forward to is cool. And I feel like I'm growing up a little bit.
Well, I'm very, very excited for you. Also very strategic that you went to New York before it hit 90 degrees. So you're going to have so much fun there. And I kind of want to end with one thing that you said. And I know it can be kind of Pollyannish to always find like the silver lining in all sorts of hard situations, but you talked about all of these self-soothing and coping skills you have. And I think about that of all of the different teenagers and young adults that we've worked with, that in many ways they are the most well-adjusted and ready for life of any teenagers that I've met, because while going through their eating disorder, they had to learn all of these skills in order to recover. And they're skills that everyone needs to learn, and some of us don't learn until we're in our 40s. So I'm very, very confident that you're going to thrive out there, Amelia. And it was incredibly generous of you and Lisa, your mom, to both be here and share your story with all of us. We really, really appreciate it. And we wish you the best. Anything you want to say in closing, Amelia or Lisa, and then we'll say goodbye to our guests.
Yeah, well, I wanted to respond to Angelica on the chat, and I just want to say, I thank everyone for listening. It's crazy because I would never expect to be called like inspiring for like if I saw myself like 7 years ago doing this, I would think it's an absolutely different person. And so if you can't see your kid right now doing what I am doing, I promise you will. And just to stick with it, and it's gonna get better. It sounds stupid, but I didn't think it was ever gonna get better. And my life is really beautiful, and I'm really grateful. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you so much, Amelia. Thank you so much. Lisa, did you have any final words?
No.
Yeah, I think maybe your mom is more mellow than both you and I, Amelia. Thank you everyone for being here. Someone asked contact info if you have further questions. You can contact info@equip.health and we'll make sure that they get to Lisa. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Lisa and Amelia. You two are so generous. I hope you all have great weeks. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, Erin.
Thank you.